For a long time, men were given a very specific image of what strength looked like. You've seen it before. The man who never panics. The man who never doubts. The man who never shows emotion. He walks into a room, calm, controlled, slightly detached. Nothing seems to touch him. Problems appear, and he handles them effortlessly. He doesn't try too hard. He doesn't explain himself much. He doesn't reveal weakness. He is composed, self-contained, cool. And for decades, this image of masculinity has been everywhere. Movies, music, advertising, the quiet hero, the man who never sweats. But there's a problem with this model. It leaves very little room for real men because real life doesn't feel cool most of the time. Real life feels uncertain, messy, emotional. So many men quietly carry a question. Why does being a man feel harder than it looks? Let's explore that together. The myth of the untouchable man. The cool man is admired because he appears invulnerable. Nothing shakes him. When something goes wrong, he shrugs. When tension rises, he remains calm. When people criticize him, he doesn't seem to care. At first glance, that looks like strength, but psychologically there's something missing because the cool man does not show us what he feels. And when men grow up believing that emotional distance equals strength, something subtle happens. They start hiding parts of themselves. Fear, confusion, grief, shame. These emotions don't disappear. They simply go underground. Over time, many men start believing that being human is somehow incompatible with being masculine. That's a heavy burden. Many men think strength means hiding what they feel. They imagine the ideal man as someone who never shows anxiety, never struggles, never doubts himself. But that image isn't strength, it's distance. When men suppress their emotions to appear unbothered, they often lose something important. Connection. Connection with their partner, connection with their friends, connection with themselves. True masculinity isn't emotional numbness, it's emotional steadiness. A man who can feel anxiety and still move forward is stronger than a man who pretends anxiety doesn't exist. Real strength is honesty about what you carry, a different model of masculinity. Let's imagine another kind of man, not the cool man, the grounded man. This man is not perfect. He gets anxious. He makes mistakes. He sometimes feels overwhelmed, but he doesn't pretend otherwise. Instead, he handles his vulnerability with maturity. That's an important distinction. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's awareness. When a man understands his own struggles, he becomes more compassionate toward the struggles of others. He listens more carefully. He forgives more easily, not because he is passive, but because he understands how fragile human life actually is. The man who knows his imperfections. Let me tell you about a man we'll call Thomas. Thomas wasn't flashy. He wasn't the loudest voice in the room. But people trusted him. At work, when something went wrong, Thomas didn't hide. He would say calmly, "I made a mistake there. Let's fix it." That sentence alone made him unusual. Many people avoid accountability. Thomas didn't. When someone forgot his name at a meeting, he laughed gently and said, "Don't worry, I forget names all the time too." And when his partner was upset, he didn't rush to defend himself. He listened, not perfectly, but sincerely. Thomas wasn't invulnerable, but people felt safe around him. That's the quiet strength many men overlook. The strongest men are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who can admit when they do. When a man says, "I was wrong," something powerful happens. Trust grows, respect grows, not because he is flawless, but because he is real. Perfection creates distance. Honesty creates connection. A mature man understands that mistakes are part of being human. What matters is how he responds afterward. Accountability is a form of courage. Why warmth is often misunderstood. Warmth is sometimes mistaken for softness. But warmth is not weakness. Warmth is emotional intelligence. It means recognizing that everyone you meet is carrying invisible burdens. The person who snaps at you might be exhausted. The colleague who seems distant might be grieving. The friend who forgot your birthday might be overwhelmed. A warm man does not excuse harmful behavior, but he understands that people are complicated. This awareness makes him patient. And patience is a powerful form of stability. The strength of emotional awareness. When a man is aware of his own fears and insecurities, something changes. He becomes less defensive, less reactive, less desperate to prove himself because he knows who he is. He doesn't need to perform strength. He simply practices it, and practicing strength often looks quiet. It looks like listening when you would rather interrupt. It looks like apologizing when pride tells you not to. It looks like staying calm when emotions rise. These behaviors rarely appear heroic, but they build real trust. There is a difference between looking strong and being strong. Looking strong is performance, and being strong is consistency. A man who dominates a room might look powerful, but a man who can stay calm during conflict is often far stronger. Because emotional stability is difficult. It requires awareness, it requires humility, it requires patience. Masculinity is not about overpowering others, it's about mastering yourself. Self-control is quiet power. Learning from our mistakes. Every man accumulates regrets, decisions we wish we could change, relationships we handled poorly, opportunities we missed. These experiences can make a man bitter, or they can make him wise. A mature man allows his past mistakes to soften him, not weaken him, soften him. He becomes more forgiving, more patient, more thoughtful with others because he knows how easy it is to get things wrong. And that awareness deepens his humanity. A gentle reflection. Pause for a moment and consider this question. What kind of presence do people feel when they are around you? Do they feel tension, competition, distance, or do they feel calm? Do they feel respected? Do they feel safe to be themselves? If this kind of reflection resonates with you, continue exploring these conversations. This space exists to help men understand themselves more deeply. The power of humility. One of the most overlooked masculine traits is humility, not humiliation, humility. Humility allows a man to grow. It allows him to learn. It allows him to repair relationships when things break. Without humility, a man becomes rigid, and rigidity isolates him. But humility keeps him adaptable. It keeps him human. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's seeing yourself clearly. A humble man knows his strengths, but he also knows his limits. This awareness makes him open to learning, open to feedback, open to growth. And growth is the foundation of maturity. The man who believes he has nothing left to learn eventually stops evolving. But the man who stays curious continues becoming stronger. Maturity is a lifelong process. Strength through compassion. Something interesting happens when a man accepts his own imperfections. He becomes kinder, not naive, but kinder, because he recognizes how difficult life can be. He knows people are trying, sometimes failing, sometimes hurting. So instead of reacting with contempt, he responds with understanding. This does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means choosing compassion when compassion is appropriate, and that makes him deeply respected. What women and men actually respect. Contrary to popular belief, people do not respect emotional distance forever. They may admire it briefly, but long-term trust grows around men who are reliable, thoughtful, and emotionally steady. Men who keep their word, admit their mistakes, listen carefully, and respond calmly. These men are not dramatic, but they are deeply respected. The man who pretends to be invulnerable often ends up alone, not because people dislike him, but because no one can truly connect with someone who never reveals himself. Connection requires openness. Trust requires honesty. Strength requires awareness. A man who can say, "I'm struggling," without collapsing is incredibly strong. because he is grounded enough to face reality. Vulnerability, when handled well, is a form of courage. The kind of man the world needs. Perhaps the future of masculinity is not colder, but warmer, not weaker, but wiser. A man who can remain calm under pressure, who can admit when he's wrong, who can forgive, who can support others, who understands that strength and compassion are not opposites, they are partners. Let's close here. Masculinity doesn't need to be a performance. It doesn't require constant toughness. It doesn't demand emotional silence. It asks for something simpler: self-awareness, integrity, and the courage to remain human in a complicated world. If today's conversation helped you reflect on your own journey, take that insight with you. And if you want more grounded conversations about men, psychology, and emotional clarity, you're welcome to stay connected. Because becoming a better man isn't about appearing strong. It's about becoming steady.